I don't remind myself that they're 2 minutes fast, so that way if I'm like 1 minute late, like, oh no, I really gotta get out the door. It's like, oh, look at that, right on time.
Well, Jay has really already started, but this is the official start. I've taken off my parking attendant hat, and I am here as I'm Patty Pelletier. I'm co-founder of Savor the River Valley. We are so happy to have all of you here today. Thank you for coming. Who has had a cooking class from Jay before? Great. Well, everybody, you're in for such a treat because he is terrific. I just wanted to tell you a little bit about Savor. We are a grassroots initiative of 40 some food businesses in the River Valley, farmers, restaurants, food processors, retailers, caterers, and we are trying to promote food in the River Valley and hope that it will become an economic engine for development in our area. Um, One way we do that is through these classes. And Jay has another one, November 11th, sushi. It's kind of part two of this class. So if you haven't signed up already, it's Saturday, November 11th, 2 to 4, right here. So take a look at it on our website. We are also having an open farm day at the Cates Family Farm. It is free. It's on Sunday, September 17th from 1 to 3. And the Cates are going to show us how they have transformed a little stream that runs through their property into a class 1 trout stream and give us a wagon ride through their farm and talk about what they're doing in pasture management that's helping water quality and soil quality. And the November 11th class kind of kicks off our Savor Winter School. We are set to make this winter delicious. We have classes almost every Saturday from November through March. We don't have that up on our website, but it's coming, so please take a look at that because we have a lot of fun things going on this winter. And finally, we are nonprofit. We have no money, and we have big ideas for things that we can do to help all the food businesses in this area. So I put a little container back by the coffee, and if you could see fit to give us a donation to help support our mission, we would dearly appreciate that. So I am going to turn you over to Jay for a fabulous afternoon. Thank you again for coming.
Thanks, Patty. All right, so we can get started. I have to say that this very surprisingly turned out to be the hardest class for me to prepare for because every other class that I've taught is something that I've made over and over again for different events and things like that, which means I have recipes. This ramen, I make ramen every week. It's always just thrown together with whatever I have on hand. It's never a recipe or anything like that. So I realized that I didn't have something that I just had to take, like, oh, well, here's a recipe that I just wrote that's basically a list of ingredients and maybe some very vague instruction, like I usually use in the kitchen, and have to create this fun little document that we've got here for you that looks like a lot. There's a lot of densely packed information, but we'll walk you through it, and you'll see that this is actually just a very helpful reference material to help you just make some amazing ramen based on whatever you've got lying around with just a few ingredients. So above the line here, we've got core elements in brief, taste elements to include, and then just suggested ingredients to have on hand. And then everything below the line here on the second page is the core elements in detail. So kind of breaking it up into that to see that really, well, what is ramen? Its core elements. You need noodles, you need broth, you need at least one kind of protein, at least one kind of vegetable, and what I call the finishing touches. So that's really not a whole lot. Just a couple of things, and you've got a nice bowl of ramen. As far as like the taste elements that you kind of want to include as you're thinking about it, so it's basically all of them except for bitter. Which, if you like bitter, you can throw it in there, but that's not something that I really look that I chase to get that flavor into the bowl. But sweet, sour, salty, umami or savory, fat, and then pepper or spicy. Now, I say pepper or spicy, it could be like a mild chili oil or a hot sauce or some sansho Japanese pepper, something that kind of has that edge to it. And you don't need one thing that is all of these things. You can combine them. So for sweet and sour, you can do sweet and sour. There's a lot of meat things that you can do that are going to check off salty, umami, and fat. And then right there, you've got most of them checked off with just two things. I do want to go over the suggested ingredients to have on hand. This is all stuff that I have in my kitchen at all times, and I don't mean this kitchen, I mean my kitchen at home, and it's having these things just lying around that make it so easy to just throw stuff together. One thing that's so wonderful about this is the Japanese have been preserving ingredients for long-term storage for thousands of years. So most of this is like dry pantry stuff, not even in the fridge. So, I mean, for one, just Japanese or really any Asian noodle. We're doing mostly Japanese today, but if you're at home and you're like, well, I really like those thick pad thai noodles, sure, use that if that's what you want. So just having some Japanese noodles on hand, some sort of either stock or stock base. Now I say stock base because like what we're doing today, I'm doing all real stock from stuff that I pulled out of the freezer because I have a walk-in freezer and I'm able to take leftover stock from things and just put it in there for when I need it, and I can pull it out for you guys. At home, when I'm doing ramen, it's I need to make dinner right now and just throw something together fast. So, I mean, I'm a fan of using stock base at home. I mean, Penzeys has really good chicken and beef base. It's just a kind of paste, keep it in the fridge, mix it with hot water, and it tastes really good. These are a little more on the pricey side. I think they're around like $10 a piece now. But that being said, depending on how much you use them, they'll last you a good several months in the fridge. If you wanted to do vegetarian one, the Better Than Bouillon brand, no chicken base, I always just call it the no chicken chicken. It does have a very surprisingly chicken-esque flavor. And, bottom line, it does taste good. Nobody paid me to tell you this. This is what I do at home when I don't want to, when again, I just want to heat up water, throw something in the pot. So having something like that, real flavorful stock. And later, then we'll also get into dashi, which is a Japanese stock. More on that later. Having miso on hand. There are many kinds of miso. We'll focus on 3 of them today. More on that later. Soy sauce, sweet soy sauce, or ketchup menis is very good. It's like a thick syrupy. If you've ever had sushi and like that thick sweet soy sauce that they give you with that. That's actually eel sauce, which is really, really, really close to the sweet soy sauce. So if you didn't want to make your own eel sauce, there's not actually eel in it. You can just buy this, and it is so close and amazing. Sesame oil and sesame seeds. When you get sesame oil, you want it to be this dark color. You don't want, so this is roasted and cold pressed. So it's going to have a very deep, rich flavor. This is going to be a finishing oil, not something you want to saute in. If you ever read a recipe and it tells you to saute over high heat with sesame oil, don't. It has a low smoke point. I mean, not only will you ruin so much of the delicious flavor, but oils with a low smoke point, when you saute at a high temperature, you're literally like releasing carcinogens into your food. Burned oil, cancer, bad. And sesame seeds, I mean, you can do white or black. Black does have a richer flavor and also can be a much more striking addition. Um, and There's also pink. There's smoked. Actually a surprising variety of sesame seeds. It's just fun to experiment with. Chili oil, just a red chili oil, is nice to have around. What I really lean on more is this Japanese garlic chili crisp. So it's a chili oil. It's got amazing flavor, and there is like crispy garlic bits in here, and it is one of those amazing things that this whole jar you will accidentally eat with a bag of chips, and you just realize that that amount of oil was probably not healthy, but your mouth is alive and happy. Um, Rice vinegar and sushi vinegar. The only difference between the two is the sushi vinegar has sugar already added to it. So I have both just because, like I'm going to do today for a shaved ginger salad, if the sugar is already in the vinegar, that's one less step you have to do. You can just dump it in and run. If you were only going to get one, though, just get normal rice vinegar and just leave it at that. If you see seasoned rice vinegar, it's just lightly sweetened rice vinegar with a little bit of salt in it. So I usually don't get seasoned. I just have normal rice vinegar and then the sweet sushi vinegar. Sake is one of those things that I usually don't have on hand at home all the time, but when I do, I use it, and it's nice to have around. But even though I do have back there on my wine rack, sorry, not there. No, I'm pointing where you can't see, but on the wine rack, I do have one of those grocery store sake bottles in case of emergency. But usually when I'm just cooking at home, a lot of times I don't even use the sake unless I plan on making a teriyaki or something like that. Nori is, the nori wraps, what you use for sushi. Those you can either do shredded nori or even just like a little sheet you can stick in your bowl. It's easy, it's decorative. If you like that flavor, which I do, it's just a nice addition. And then kombu and bonito are the two ingredients for making the Japanese dashi stock. The kombu is a dried, smoked, ridiculously thinly shaved fish, which I've got right here. So actually, I'll show you over here. So there's actually some of this and the bonito I have back there just because I want you guys to give it a smell. It is amazing. This is very finely shredded. This is more of what you would use as a garnish or something just to put on top of rice, put on top of your ramen, but this would be for actually eating. It comes from the inside of the cut, so it's milder and more thinly shaved. You would want to use for your stock is actually going to come from the outside of the fish, and it's even smokier and more strongly scented, flavored. But you'll get a good idea of what it is here. So there's that back there you can give a smell, and then this here, the kombu. I mean, it's seaweed. It's dried seaweed. And the white that you see on the outside here is actually the visible, naturally occurring dried MSG. I know some people are afraid of MSG and they may react negatively to it. And too much MSG is definitely bad, but it is also naturally occurring in this kelp, in tomatoes, and Parmesan cheese, and so many things that we absolutely love because it does have this naturally occurring MSG. I actually have never once added just like MSG granules or powder or anything to my food, but I absolutely 100% will use ingredients for the sole reason that they have MSG in them, and I know that they're just going to give me that extra bang. I mean, why is tomato paste so good, or even better yet, the tomato water? I mean, that's where so much of the MSG is in the tomato water. Like, that is good stuff. That is gold right there. So we're not doing that specific stock today, even though it is so amazing. It's a whole other thing. We'll see if I do just maybe like a quick thing. Maybe I'll do a reel on it, because the other reason I love it is once you have hot water, 10 minutes and it's done, which is amazing when we're so used to, like, Western and French cooking, where it's like, this tomato sauce or this chicken stock is going to take you 2 days to make. It's like, this stock takes 10 minutes, and it is so different than anything we're used to. If you like miso soup, this dashi is what makes miso soup so amazing, besides, of course, the miso, which we're going to play with heavily today. So that's all stuff that can live in your pantry and just use it when you need it. As far as fresh stuff that you want to make sure you have on hand, eggs and ginger. That's all you need to have for fresh. If you've got, you can have like vegetables in your freezer. Everything here today is like, I literally just pulled out of the garden this morning. It's what do you have on hand to make it work. So, I mean, eggs and ginger. When I say fresh ginger, not dried, but in the freezer. I always keep it in the freezer. It's going to last for months in the freezer, and you can just use a spoon or the back of a knife to scrape off the skin, grab a microplane, zest off what you need, and it's amazing. When you do fresh with a microplane, a lot of times you'll notice you'll get these like long fibrous strands. When it's frozen, those just disappear into it, and it's amazing. Alternative things that you can also have on hand are tofu, because it's amazing, and hot sauce. I really like using a thick hot sauce. We're not doing hot sauce today because, as much as I absolutely love spicy food, as a friend of mine once told me, you can hide a multitude of sins with hot sauce. There will be no sins today. I want you guys to taste anything without having your mouths caught on fire. But I like it to be something thick, like sriracha or the Guaguchan, the Korean hot sauce. Something thick, so it will stay where you put it. You choose what element you're going to add that to, and it'll stay there, and you get to enjoy that bit, as opposed to something like Tabasco, where you put it and it's just going to sort of spread and make all of the broth spicy, and then you don't get to enjoy all these little pockets of the different elements that we're going to put in there. So something thick is definitely the way to go there. So that's just the intro of what's nice to have around, and then from there we can just hit the ground running. So into our core elements in detail. The first thing that we're gonna look at is the noodles. So again, I need to make dinner now. The first thing I'm gonna do is throw a pot on and start boiling the noodles. So I am going to do that. The reason being, the noodles you cook, and then what you're going to do is put them under cold running water so they stop cooking. We're going to toss them in some of that amazing sesame oil and set them aside. We can reheat it in the broth later, but that just is like, that's what you want to do with these noodles. Otherwise, they will overcook so easily. And the last thing you want is hot broth and just like gummy, mushy, textureless noodles. So we get them right where we want them, and then we bring them back up later right to the temperature that we want to eat them, and then we're good to go. So as soon as I decide ramen, we put a pot on the stove. So what noodles are we going to do? I mean, obviously ramen noodles comes to mind. We're actually not going to do ramen noodles today, just because that would be the obvious thing to do, and I always like to go somewhere else than the obvious. But as far as the different varieties go, there's ramen and udon noodles are both wheat noodles. Soba noodles are traditionally buckwheat noodles, but I actually prefer the texture of the soba noodles when they do have wheat added. So traditionally they are gluten-free, but I like them with the wheat added. It gives them just a little more of that bite that we Westerners are used to in our noodle. It's not quite so soft. But that's what we're going to be using today, because I love the flavor of the buckwheat in there, and it is just an amazing noodle that I want to show you guys. If you haven't had it before, you get to have it today. Glass noodles, those are going to be those like clear, like stretchy noodles that are usually made with most commonly mung bean or sweet potato starch. And so they mix that together and then they push it through basically like an extruder. I know, what an unsexy word, but the extruder, and then it makes the noodles. I mean, they're still amazing. I love them for cold salads. You know, that's what you have inside of your spring rolls. Very commonly, when you have fresh spring rolls, that's what's in there. And I've noticed that's also what the other Jay, one of the other Jays in town, Jay Anderson, uses for his amazing dumplings when he's got his Korean broad stand. I noticed that he's got glass noodles in there as well. And of course, then there's rice noodles, which are obviously made from rice. And there are so many varieties that I didn't even bother going into it. But I mean, like using like Mei Fun, those really ridiculously thin Chinese noodles. Like I love that in ramen. It's I love the angel hair pasta, just those ridiculously thin noodles. I love them. So I mean, even something like that. I'm always putting rice noodles in my ramen as well. So again, we are going to be using these soba noodles, and they come in these handy little packs here that are grouped in little bunches of 3. Now, depending on how much you plan on making, basically, I do have a lot of stuff that's already made, but I'm going to kind of play through a lot of this as if I was cooking at home for my family of 5. Otherwise, it would just take forever to do all the things. So I'm just going to kind of pretend that I'm making this at home. And so usually you can kind of say like one of these per person is pretty safe. I always make a little extra in case somebody's hungry and wants to have a little more. Also, these just make your leftovers since you've tossed them in that sesame oil. You can just put it right in the fridge. They're amazing cold just to eat as is because you need something in you, or to make an Asian noodle salad. And yes, every time that automatically comes on, I'm going to shut off the light because it does just wash out everything over there. So, they do have these little tabs on here, and you can just pull tab, it comes right off. And these noodles only take like 4 minutes to cook. That's it. And I will be setting a timer. That's not just to keep myself on track, whether it's I'm doing an event or I'm cooking at home. Anytime I'm making noodles, I set a timer because we've all been there where it's noodles. It's obvious. It's easy. I'm not going to overcook the noodles. And then kids screaming, somebody calls you, the doorbell rings. You forget it, you've got overcooked noodles. So I always set a timer anywhere from 1 minute to 30 seconds before I think they should be done, just to say like, hey, remember, you got something on the stove. If the boil over doesn't get my attention first. But that's actually one thing that's funny is my 10-year-old, as soon as he sees me doing noodles, he's like, could I be in charge of the boil over? Because he's learned if you just blow on it, all the bubbles will go away. So, yeah. Got fun with that one. So let's see. This over here. I'm going to give this just another minute because we're going to start this at a rolling boil, or at least a very rapid simmer. And we can cover it, then I go faster. Are there any questions at this point? All right. Yes. Yeah, so chili oil is just the oil, nothing else. The chili crisp has stuff in it. So you can see, like, there is just some oil on top, but then all that stuff in the bottom, I mean, that is Flavor City. That's something that I put usually right on top of my eggs, is is what I put that on. It's also very handy for just adding to whatever meat. I mean, I pretty much always make sure that that makes its way into my ramen bowl on something. So, chili oil is great just to add that little bit of extra on top. But usually, what I do if I want to add some oil to the top for flavor, I go for sesame oil. And then when I want the mild chili for flavor, I go for the chili crisp. And again, there's no heat, all flavor. I see bubbles. So then what I'll do, because this is pretty much the amount that I'm usually cooking at home. I'll have 2 handfuls, and now I'm sure we've all been there where you just take it and you just drop it in, and then they all stick together. So what I always do, no matter what kind of noodle I'm making, is if it's a straight noodle, I go back and forth so they kind of crisscross and they can't just immediately stick to each other. And having an 8-quart pot like this is excellent for this size noodle. You definitely don't want to break it. I hope there's no Italian pasta crackers in there. I know it'll cook a little easier and it fits in your pot better, but use a bigger pot. Please don't break your pasta. Nobody saw that at all. Nailed it. Alright, so like I said, I always set a timer. Usually I do it right away, but I had to say something first. So as soon as they are perfectly done, we're gonna shock them cold with cold running water, toss them with some sesame oil, and then just set them aside. All right. The other thing that I usually do is, I should say 2 pots of water on as soon as I get started, because I'm going to want one for noodles and then another one for vegetables and eggs. So, just to say, have another thing of water on. We're going to go into broth now, and because I always have to make things difficult for myself, we will be doing 4 different kinds of broth today. We're going to be doing a beef broth, a chicken broth, a pork broth, and actually a mushroom stock as well. Again, none of these are from concentrate or a base or anything. These all came right from, just from a roast or something like that. So I have on there the traditional flavor profile based pairings. So we're going to be doing all miso with all of these. Miso isn't something that is always in ramen, but again, we're doing quick, easy. Where's Isaac when you need him? We're doing quick, easy Japanese, and miso is an excellent way to do that. So there's 3 main kinds of miso. You've got the shiro miso, or white miso. You've got the aka miso, or red miso. And then there's the hacho miso, which is brown miso. Those are progressively stronger and typically saltier as you go. Another one we're going to be doing is actually awase miso, which is literally just these 2 mixed together. So if you were going to get one miso, I would say getting the white miso, the shiro miso, is a great place to start. As far as flavor goes, it is made much like soy sauce with soybeans, wheat, and most commonly rice, which is, soy sauce. So the flavor is very, very similar, yet so amazingly different. You'll see what I mean. We got a snag one, see where we're at. Not there yet, but I know I'm close. So we are going to be using the white miso for our chicken, stock, and then we're going to be doing the red miso for our beef stock, and then we are going to be doing for our pork stock and our mushroom stock. We're going to be mixing them together to do the awase. Now, you can't just take the miso and throw it into your stock, otherwise you're going to wind up with all of these little round miso balls. So what you actually need to do is make what is very attractively called a slurry, where you're going to just put the miso in a bowl, all right, and put a very small amount of your hot stock in there, mix it until it's smooth. I have made the mistake many times, still do, where I accidentally put too much water into that bowl, even though it's not much, and I just wind up making miso balls in my bowl instead of in there. So just be aware of that. I'll show you exactly how we're going to do that. This should be done now. Just like anybody, you just got to taste it. Done. So I'm just going to bring it right over to the stove, and I'm going to put a smaller colander. Just have this good elevate it. So we're just going to shock that cold, let it run for just a minute to get the initial heat off. A lot of times I will even save some of that hot water for either blanching some vegetables in, or putting a steamer basket on top so you can steam your broccoli that way, or even just using like a basket strainer and just setting it over there and putting a lid on top. I mean, there's a lot of different things you can do to cut down on dishes, not needing several different pots. You don't need a different pot for each thing. So right now, not only are we cooling them down so that they don't keep cooking, but we're also rinsing off the excess starch so that they don't all glue themselves together. That being said, they still will want to stick to themselves a little bit. Again, hence why we are tossing them in the sesame oil. At home, I just use a clean hand for this, but for you guys, I'll use a glove. All right. So, nice and chilled. And now we can just grab our oil, and we're just going to dump some in there. Toss it the rest of the way. And honestly, as this is right now, I mean, throw some shaved vegetables on top of this and put it in a bowl, and I'm a happy camper. But now we can just set this aside. and wait for everything else. Obviously, this is not enough noodles for everybody. I'll add it to the bowl. And yes, I'm hoping to have extra to be eating this in many different ways for the coming week. So there we go. It's still hot. What do you know? And again, at home, I would just leave it in the colander. I wouldn't even take it out, leave it in there. You put a plate under it if it drips at all, but no need to put it in another bowl. It's just going to go right from the colander into the serving bowls. We're going to do it so everybody can come through and make their own bowl. But at home, I just make all the bowls, and my kids are 4, 8, and 10, so everybody coming through and making their own bowl would just be dangerous. So I do all the plating. All right, so noodles done. We're gonna move on to the broth, and I've got them all over here, ready to go. Now, obviously, we want to have our stock hot, but you don't want to boil miso. It will change the flavor, and not in a way that you want. It can make it kind of bitter. And bitter edges in some things can be very nice, but like I said before, it's just not something I want in my ramen. So, I've got already measured out my misos here. And it is worth saying that your miso will last for a very long time in the fridge. Keep it airtight, as Tamaki at the Oriental shop in Madison, who actually is watching right now. Hi, Tamaki. I once asked her many years ago, like, how long will this last in the fridge? She said, as long as you only dip into it with a dry spoon, like forever. I mean, if you ask the internet says a year. But, I mean, it won't last you forever because you're going to just start putting it in everything. But just remember, keep moisture out of it. It's fermented, it is salty, it is made to last and just hold in your fridge for a good long time. So as long as you keep moisture out, you'll have it. All right, I am going to start with one of these. The mushroom right here. So, for the mushroom, I think I said I was going to do the awase for this one. I just did the white, actually. The only one I did the awase for was the pork, which I guess it's also worth saying the pork is probably the most traditional ramen broth, but it's also, I'd say, the hardest to do very quickly because I have never had a store-bought a store-bought pork stock or stock base or anything that I thought tasted a quarter as good as the real thing. So for this, I actually just happened to make some pork shoulder last night, so I had some leftover broth. Why are we doing it? Because I had it lying around and it was easy. That's what ramen should be. So, but for the mushroom, we've got the white here. So, a good range is for each cup of stock, total stock that you plan on making, to have between a teaspoon and a tablespoon of miso. And that's literally like a range of a tablespoon is 3 times what a teaspoon is. So it's just how much miso flavor do you want in there? How strong is the broth that you're starting with? If it's already a very strong broth, you probably don't want to go too heavy on the miso. That being said, all of these stocks here are already delicious as is, fully flavored. So so I'm going on the between low and medium side for how much miso I'm adding. I mean, if you went heavy on it, it would be amazing, but you would really only be able to have about like half of the broth before your body was just like can't take any more intense flavor. Have you ever, had something that was like, it's like having something that is so rich that you want to keep eating it, but your body just kind of can't take any more. But all right, so we're looking nice and thin here, and usually what I'll do is I'll just stick the bowl right in there, just sort of wash it out in the broth. The spoon is made from corn. It's not plastic, just so you know. Now the fun part, that is pretty darn good.
Hey Jane,
Yeah.
is it just straight stock and pass?
Yes. Yeah, there's nothing else in these pots right now except just the stock. So yeah, just mushroom, just chicken. And it's also worth saying that if you really want to just like up the flavor even more, using you can actually do instant dashi packets. It's just granules that you can add in, and you know they're not as good as the real stock, but they're a great way to just add that extra layer of authentic flavor that is really good. So, all right, I'm going on to the chicken now, which is also just the white. So a lot of times when you read recipes, it says, stir the miso in until it dissolves. And it's kind of a misnomer. I mean, it kind of half dissolves, but as you'll notice, it will also kind of settle to the bottom in just a few minutes. So, it's certainly not grainy or anything. You're not going to pick up different bits of it as long as you've incorporated it properly and you don't have miso balls. But when you're serving it, when you're getting it out of the pot, you're always going to make sure you just give it, a quick swish with the ladle, and it'll immediately just incorporate itself up into everything. Splash. I had considered just showing you how to do this once and having the other four done, and I am now kind of wishing that I had done that. Actually, is there anybody who would like to come up and do these last two while I show you how to, if you wanted to use like one of these instant dashi packets, of course the good stuff is all written in Japanese. So I can show you actually how to read these Japanese ingredient packets. I'm not going to teach you Japanese, I'm just going to teach you what to look for. I cannot read Japanese. Any volunteers for these last two? Come on up, Robin. So, let's see, we've got the pork is back here. And here is the beef. Again, the beef is just the red miso, and the pork is a blend of both. So like I was doing, I just use a spoon to put some in. I know before I said it was just a tiny bit, but these are bigger amounts that I usually do. And then you're figuring out, like I said, for miso, how to add, um, a enough, 1 teaspoon to a tablespoon of miso per cup. To figure out how much you're going to need, I usually just take a bowl. So, like, those are the bowls that we're going to be using today. And just fill it like half full of water and measure that. And that's a really good base for like how much broth you're going to need. That being said, when I make it at home, usually I actually make it in bowls this big. You can fit a lot more in there. Obviously, you can make an entire meal in the bowl. So I usually need more broth, but again, there's many of you here. So I did consider giving you guys all a massive bowl, but also since I've got so many different broths, so it's like, well, maybe they want to have a few bowls, try some different stuff. But for reading your ingredients, I had to check before what the best camera was. It's actually this one here. That's perfect right there. This is the only camera that isn't mirrored, so you guys can read this here. So, so this one here, you can see that these are, instead of being a granule, these are like tea bags, actually, that you brew into your hot stock. And so it's, a lot of times they're already measured out in either the granule packets or these kind of tea bags, but you need to know how much water do I do? How long does it go in? Luckily, since they're like tea bags, you can basically think of it like brewing tea. But right away you can see, all right, 8G, we know that G is grams, so we know we've got to weight, times 20. So the obvious thing that we can see is like, all right, there are 20 8-gram packets in here. Then when we look at the back, so now what we're looking for is a water measurement. How much water do we put in? And they always have things in milliliters, so the numbers are just normal numbers. We know how to read numbers, and we're looking for an ml. So you can see right there, we've got 400 ml. And actually, they are kind enough to us, since not all of us know what 400 milliliters is off the top of our head. Oh, it's got the parentheses right here. It's got some Japanese that we can't read, but then it says 2 to 3, 400 milliliters, or in parentheses, 2 to 3 cups, something in there. And so, and then down below here, actually, that is, it's got another 2 to 3, but it could be hard to tell. It's got different Japanese characters. This is saying 2 to 3 minutes. So you found the number with an ml after it. You know you've got 400 milliliters of water. In parentheses right after that, they're being nice to us, telling us in cups. Then the next number is just going to be brew time if you've got one of these. This is actually a vegan or vegetarian dashi. In this case, it's only the kelp. So it's basically the kelp granules that are all in these little weighed out packets. And again, it tells you right here on the front. If I can get the angle right, there we go. Read it. Focus. Well, it says 4G times 10. So we know there are 4-gram packets, and there are 10 of them in there. And then likewise on the back, we look for something that says ml, and oh, look at that, 600 ml, and it has something in parentheses right next to it. Isn't that nice? That's about 3 cups. And then right under it, 1 4-gram. Well, we saw on the front, those packets are 4 grams, so 1 4-gram packet, and about 3 cups of liquid. So that's how you can get these good, high quality Japanese, like instant things that, I mean, they have been using these for 50, 60, 70 years in Japan just for making life easier, even though it does only take, 10 minutes to make a great dashi. You can do this in 2 to 3 minutes, and sometimes that's just nice. And a lot of times you also want to be able to add, just a little bit of dashi for the what is it? The eggs. I'll tell you later. But sometimes you just want a little bit of dashi as an ingredient, so that's a really quick way of doing that. Even just that the kelp granules. I made you guys teriyaki for marinating both our soft boiled eggs and our tofu. So I made a teriyaki, which is just equal parts soy sauce, mirin, which is a Japanese cooking wine. You wouldn't want to drink it; it is sweeter, and sake. So soy sauce, sake, mirin, equal parts with just a little bit of sugar. That's all, and it is way better than any teriyaki you ever had at the store. I used to try all the time. Here's another teriyaki. Maybe this one's decent since it's four things, super easy. They're all terrible, but you make your own, and it's like, well, there it is. And then from there, if you want, you can throw in some green onion, take some ginger, smash it, throw it in there, just let it sit. Some citrus peel, some of this kombu, the kombu granules. Throw in some of that just to like up the flavor a little bit. You can take that basic recipe and just play with it, make it fun. So we've got noodles and we've got broth. I talk a lot, so that took a lot of time. But again, you can make the noodles, heat up some broth, throw in your miso. That's done. Now for protein. The obvious protein is meat, and this is always one of the easiest things. It's whatever you have lying around. You can do some traditional pork belly, which does take some preparation. It's amazing, but we're not doing ramen as an event. I've actually taught a ramen class before that was ramen as an event. It was a 2-day class because it took 2 days to make it. It was a pork rib sake soba bowl from the Ryukyu Islands, and it was amazing. It was ramen as an event, but again, it took 2 days. So we're not going to do that. We're not going to make a meat specifically for this. We're just going to use literally whatever I had lying around. I knew I was going to be making that pork for an event yesterday, so as soon as I made it, I put some in the fridge, and we're going to be doing some of that pork. Also, I just did some Italian beef sandwiches. I had some leftover beef in the freezer. I pulled that out. We're just going to use that because it's ramen is supposed to be easy. So that's all we're doing there. I have some notes on there as far as just recommended things that you could do. I have, the pulled pork, shoulder roast. I've also got on there like carnitas, because if you've got like leftover carnitas, that's one of my favorite things to do is make like a Latin-based ramen. The flavors go so well with it. For Cinco de Mayo, I made a completely Mexican ramen, and it was out of this world. So again, it was just like whatever you have lying around, you can make it work. Yeah, with beef, I've done amazing things with beef. And you've got like leftover steak. If you did manage to have some leftover steak, you can just very thinly slice it. And if you've got it perfectly medium rare and you don't want to get it any farther, you literally just warm it up a little bit in your broth, and that's it. Get it warm enough to eat, thinly sliced, and you've got that medium rare steak, prime rib. I've done it with leftover prime rib, and it is just ridiculous. Even we've got like leftover prime rib jus that you use as your stock, which there is some in the beef stock. So yeah, chicken. Just my favorite way to do it if you are going to do chicken is just pan fried, lightly seasoned, and then just slice it thin. Not even going with a full like teriyaki or glaze or making a tare or something like that. Just doing it very simply flavored. That's one of the things I love about Japanese cooking and ramen is you have a whole lot of things that are very simply flavored, and it all comes together to just make this. I don't want to say party in your mouth, but I just did, and we can move on. Tofu. Tofu is one of those things that is absolutely amazing as long as you prepare it right. It's trickier to do for the oh crap, quick throw together ramen because you need to press your tofu. You need to press your tofu. If you don't like tofu, it's probably because you're not pressing it. It's packed in water, so it can last longer. You need to get that water out so that the new flavor can come in. It is a blank palette for you to do whatever you want with. I have done marinated tofu, but I do want to show you if you don't know how to press tofu, we're just going to do it real quick here. Yes, we'll move. Oh, that's fine. All right. So, easiest way to do it is sheet pan, 2 towels on the bottom. There's a simple soy man tofu packed in water. I like this one. It's out of Milwaukee. First thing I do is it is full to the top, so I typically do this over the sink. I am going over to the sink now to drain it, but I just cut 3 sides and just drain that out. It is incredibly soft, so I don't even use a cutting board. I just cut it right on the towel. A lot of times there'll be these little scrap pieces here, and that one looks fine. All you're gonna do is cut it into these slabs. Usually I do it in squares, like I should say the final product. Usually I do as squares. A lot of times Japanese will do triangles, I'm sure you've seen. So since usually, so we're going to do squares, I want the thickness of it right now to be what I want the cube later to wind up being. So if you want bigger chunks, then thicker slices. If you want it to be more of a dice, if you're going to go for like a topping on something, then go thinner. So just that, and you know what? Actually, I was going to grab another towel and put it on, but look at that. I can just do this. Scoot it over just a little bit. And a lot of times I'll sort of bunch it together in the middle. So I can grab just a little bit more. Yeah, sure, why not one more towel? Towel on top, another sheet pan, grab something heavy. Let's just pretend this is heavy. And just set it there to press for anywhere from half an hour to 3 hours. The longer you press it, the more of that moisture you're going to get out. Once it's pressed, then you can cut it into whatever you want. Deep fried is amazing. All you need to do is dust it in cornstarch and fry it in hot oil. Peanut oil is the cheapest and best oil for frying, just because it does have a 500 to 550 degree smoke temp, which is great because I like to fry my tofu at 400 degrees. If somebody can't do peanuts, soybean oil, or sorry, not soybean oil, sunflower oil is the next most cost effective. There are others, but yes. Great question. Firm is what I like to go for. When you get to extra firm, then it's more of like with this, you'll see that it's got little gaps and little pieces, almost you could see the curd was like smashed together. With the extra firm, it's actually like pureed and then formed, so there's no voids in there, and that's the kind that is great if you want to add tofu to like a smoothie, because it will just completely puree smooth. if you can do, and it is delicious, fried extra firm tofu, but it is incredibly difficult to work with. You do wind up with this crispy exterior and just a lusciously smooth interior. They're just creamy and amazing. Absolutely possible, trickier to do, but firm is my usual go-to for tofu. So that's all you got to do to press it, get that moisture out, and then it can absorb the flavor. With all that extra water in there, it can't absorb the flavor, and you won't like it. All right. Protein continued on the next page here. We get to eggs. Now I have an entire second page here after this is all eggs. And I even did a crazy thing. Where are we? There we go. On that table, right over there where you find folks who say, no, the wood one in front of you. The wood table matches the table right in front of you. That's where that picture was taken, as I made all of those eggs slightly differently. So this is to get the perfect soft poached egg. You can see that it starts there in the top left corner with a large room temperature egg at 6 minutes into simmering water at 6 minutes, out immediately after 6 minutes in shocked cold in ice water, and you will wind up with a perfectly firm set white and a perfectly runny yolk in the middle, which is what I go for, which is what I love. I did that with jumbo eggs, also room temp. But then at the bottom, you can see those bottom two rows. Those are from the fridge at 37 degrees. So I have the top are so I got a lot going on here. Sorry. So the top two rows are room temp. The bottom two rows are cold from the fridge. We have large and jumbo. I have they're the exact same, top and bottom, both large and jumbo. I just have one written in grams and one written in ounces. I weighed every single egg first, so you can see that they are the larges are all between 2 ounces and 2.1 ounces, and the jumbo are all between 2.4 and 2.5 ounces. And so you can see that at room temperature, we have to get the jumbo eggs up to between 7.5 and 8 minutes to get our set whites as we continue on there. And then from the fridge, interestingly enough, both the large and the jumbo, you had to get all the way to 8 minutes before you had the whites set. But then at that point, our yolk was already starting to set as well. So really the takeaway from this is you get a much more even cook on your eggs when they are room temperature. I've always done them room temperature. I grew up with chickens, so the eggs were always, room temperature, or if from the chicken, warmer than room temperature. So that's just what I was used to. But the reason that I did this is I know a lot of times you won't have the forethought to get the eggs out. You will be doing it from the fridge. However, if you do want to get that more accurate, more perfectly even cooking egg, you can put it in warm water from the fridge. Put it in warm water, not hot. You don't want to cook it, but in warm water for like 10 to 15 minutes. And the warm will mellow out to a more room temperature as the cold egg gets the right temperature. And so you can have room temperature eggs in 10 to 15 minutes. But if you don't want that perfect jelly center and you want it to be a little more set, then you can use this and go right from the fridge, and it will work. So yeah, I did that the other day for the sake of science, because I'm a crazy person. But yeah, so I was going to make soft-boiled eggs, but it's like, with all of this information, like, yes, maintain a simmer, not a boil, a simmer of between 196 and 206 degrees. You don't need to temp it. As long as you've got a couple of bubbles moving around in your pot, you're good. If it's steaming, turn it up a little bit. If it's boiling, turn it down a little bit. A couple of bubbles is what you want. So instead, I'm gonna do a tamagoyaki omelet roll, which is actually not something that is traditionally put on ramen, but it's really fun, and so why not? Let's put it on ramen. Um, I guess I'll back up just a moment to say you could do poached eggs too, not also not traditional on ramen, but I also have rather nailed down how to make the perfect poached egg. So I just gave you that information too. So this is the sort of master egg sheet that you have. But to move on to our omelet roll, traditionally it is made in an omelet roll pan, which is a non-stick rectangular pan where you take your egg. It's mixed with a little bit of dashi, a little bit of soy sauce, a little bit of sugar, a little bit of mirin. Mix it nice and smooth, and then you put a very thin layer in the bottom of your pan, and then right when it's like almost set, just as it's set, you roll it up, and then you wind up with this like little egg roll thing, and then you slice that into rounds, and then you wind up with these like amazing little scrambled egg rounds. I usually put it on rice or something like that, but I literally called an audible like 2 hours ago and was like, nah, let's make this. So, we've got some egg here. Are there any questions while we're at it? And you know what? Let's get funky. Let's do some. Let's throw in some nori too. Okay. We're going to add a sheet of nori, so you're going to have a green spiral going through it as well. So, first things first, hot pan. You will notice I do not have a rectangular omelet roll pan, and I'm going to take a stab in the dark and say you probably don't either. So it won't be perfect from side to side as it traditionally would be. However, it's still going to be good. Having a little spatula on hand is helpful. Nope, not that one. Not that one. No, you know what? I do want to be here. I just move over a burner. Or I can just move this. That's a little bit. Alright. So, you don't want to use olive oil or something like that for this. You want to use a neutral oil. Basic, cheap, easy neutral oil. Soybean oil. Normal vegetable oil. So, just a little bit. I've already got the aforementioned ingredients in here, and honestly, I have made this before, literally with just a little bit of soy sauce and a bit of water to thin it down a little bit, without making like a dashi and all this other stuff, and it was still amazing. So, if you look at that and you're like, well, I'm not going to have all of those ingredients. No, just try the technique without all this stuff, and just make a little drop of soy sauce, a little bit of water to thin it down, and it's going to be just fun and tasty. cooking fast today. I have to admit, I've only ever done this on my stove at home, which is a great deal cooler than this one. Yeah, it just washes right up. And all right, but what we're going to do is we're going to throw on a sheet of nori on there. Yes, I'm used to cooking this at around 15,000 BTUs and not 35,000. We just roll that up. And if you want to get crazy with it, which, let's face it, we do, add another layer. That's more what I wanted to see the first time. And then you can kind of lift it up, let it get under your other one. That was more of the gentle add I was going for the first time. And we can add another sheet of nori. I also never use a pan this big. Oh no, I tore it. Don't look. I'm ashamed. Yes, typically this would be a perfectly cylindrical, not tapered on the ends or torn or anything like that. But then you wind up this guy. Those things I put gloves over here. Alright, to make them more readily accessible. And then I pretend that they're heavy and move them. Slice them nice and thin like that. Then you wind up with this delicious swirled. Get it close there. No, I can just smell the nori coming right off of that. And so you can, like when I put this on top of rice, you know, you can either take like several of them and fan them out and just sort of have them like fanned out and displayed on top of the rice. Or even a lot of times what I'll do with the kids is just tell them that they're noodles and just put a little pile right on top like that. And I mean, they're just fun to play with. Now I need somewhere to put that. All right, and on to the next. We are still in Protein Town. So let's move on to our marinated tofu. So I showed you how to press tofu. The marinade that I made, like I said, was just a basic, quick teriyaki. There's a bin over there for me to put it in. I'm not just throwing it on the floor. However, I missed the bin and I threw it on the floor. All right, our tofu. I have drained from the marinade, and you can see it's got this gorgeous color now. I did press for 2.5 hours, and then once the marinade was chill, added that on, and all we're gonna do with this is just saute it until it gets just a little bit of crispy edges on it. I mean, not like crispy, but kind of caramelized on there. And then right when it's done, we're going to pour a little bit of this teriyaki in there and kind of make it into like a syrup. A lot of times you'll see teriyaki recipes that have, cornstarch or some sort of thickener in there. Traditionally, to get it syrupy like that, you just reduce it down a little bit. You don't add anything to it. And this pan... Thinking. Alright. Now, since tofu does have that higher moisture content, it's got that kind of open structure, we remove moisture, we put moisture back in. This can take a little bit. So I'm going to throw this in and then kind of move on. Don't want to crowd the pan. I'm gonna have to do it fast. So moving on, I guess might as well jump right to our eggs. So yeah, we've got our eggs. Cooked them, marinated them. They are all different sizes. So some of them are going to be a little more jelly than others. But these were marinated for, I think how long exactly. Got done with the wedding, got back from the wedding yesterday at about 8, and then remembered around 9. So about 9 last night is when I started marinating them. So, yeah, about 18 hours. That was the tofu. The eggs. That was the tofu. The eggs I did for 2 days. 2 days. And... I'm going to use a cutting board. So now you can see, maybe. Is it as washed out in this monitor as it is on that? Okay, good. So yeah, you can see how much it's penetrated into the center of that white and gives you this gorgeous jelly center. And all of these eggs are from Ducks in a Row Farm right here in Spring Green, which is why some of them are less than perfectly peeled. So because the older an egg is, the easier it is to peel. It's got that thin membrane between the egg white and the shell. And the older the egg is, the more that membrane breaks down. So an older egg, when that membrane is more broken down, will peel very easily. However, a fresh egg, that membrane is attached to the egg whites and it is holding on to that shell. So when you pull the shell off, it's going to be ripping away bits. So, knowing that, I was like, all right, with this class coming up, I am going to order a bunch of eggs from Nadia, and I'm going to hold on to them for 3 weeks. So I have 3-week-old eggs that are still fresh from the farm. And I did that and then ate most of them. So, like this one here, you can see peeled beautifully, and it even has that kind of circle on the bottom there where the gas was starting to develop, and that's why sometimes you get that that dimple in the bottom of your egg. That's the gas that is being released is pushing against the egg and gives you that. So when you have a farm fresh egg, like there will not be a dimple at all. So yeah, a lot of these you can be like, oh yeah, it's got didn't peel as easily. Yeah, it's a freshie. All right, so we'll leave that for the moment. Tofu is looking good. So we're ready for a little bit of our teriyaki. So again, not only does it have that little bit of sugar in it, but it has the mirin, which is, again, that sweet cooking wine, which is why it's deglazing into this kind of syrup. It's getting that sugar caramelization. I'm going to throw that into a pretty bowl. And we'll do that one more time. Just get the rest of these done. That batch will go nice and quick. All right. Next. Where do we leave off? I think we're good with protein. So there's 3 different ways of doing protein. Like I said, I haven't done the actual meat yet. So I mean, the pork, I'm just going to do that in a skillet, hot and quick. Get a little bit of sear on it because the fat in the pork, when you sear it hot and fast in a skillet, gives you that like carnitas-esque kind of crispy sear on there, and it is amazing. Now, when you sear something in a skillet like that, and you get that sear, it's more of a caramelization. You need to be careful when you're adding things into ramen that have been roasted. Like when you get like roasted broccoli, and like I love roasted broccoli or like Brussels sprouts, where it's like hot, fast, 450-degree oven, just olive oil, salt, and pepper for like 15 minutes, just until the outsides it starts to get that little bit of black crispy. Like that is amazing. But if you put that into your ramen, those little black crispy bits are going to make your broth very bitter. So seared in a skillet, caramelized flavor, roasted, blackened in the oven, bitter. So just something to keep in mind. The beef, we are just going to give a quick dunk into our beef broth, warm it up. That's all we're going to do for that. We're not going to like even add any other like Japanese ingredients to it. It's good beef. You don't need to do anything to fancy it up. It's just ready to go. And a little bit of glaze. It's all thick and syrupy. Woo. Yeah, tofu. People just say they don't like it. had it cooked right. I'm gonna need this again, so it's gonna be quick. Any questions now? All right.
I'm actually curious about the mushroom broth. How many different mushrooms are you putting in there?
How many what?
The variety of mushrooms that you're using in your mushroom stuff.
What is the variety?
Yes.
So, yeah, they're all in spring green, mostly harvested by myself, or actually, again, Jay Henderson, at the Korean broad stand, he actually grows mushrooms too, and I get my blue and brown oysters from him. I do my own golden oysters, and then shiitakes. He's got a friend that grows them in Baraboo. So that's the blend that we have today is gold, blue, and brown oysters and shiitakes. And the stock is just a blend of all of those. I will actually show you how I preserve my mushrooms so that I can go right from the freezer into a skillet and wind up with this amazing mushroom stock. Because when you dehydrate them, I mean, it does kind of, retain some flavor as it kind of dries up. But honestly, I've never been a big fan of the texture. Like, only a couple of times have I had a dehydrated mushroom rehydrated, reconstituted, and cooked. And was actually surprised at how good it was. Usually it's just kind of rubbery, not very good. Doing them this way in the freezer, it always just turns out amazing. So, let's just jump right into Mushroom Town then. Get this out of the way. Come on, me. Yeah, so I've got those there, more mushrooms over there. So, right into a skillet. I did pull these out right before class started. Usually I go right from the freezer. I freeze them on a sheet pan so they're individual frozen, and then they can go into like a Ziploc bag. So you can reach into the freezer, take your bag, pour out exactly what you need into a hot skillet, and the bag goes right back in the freezer. A little bit of our oil, and then we're going to go right in. And fun facts, you cannot overcook a mushroom and ruin its flavor. You can burn a mushroom, burning is different, but as long as you watch the temperature, you can cook and cook and cook and cook a mushroom, and then boil it, and then cook it, and then throw it back in the skillet, and you won't ruin its texture. They did science on it. They had like mechanical jaws with like teeth that would bite them and like measure the bite force that it took to get through it. And yeah, can't overcook a mushroom. Again, you can burn it. Don't burn your food. All I'm doing right now to season these is just pepper. I'm not doing salt because I added just a little tiny bit of salt when I started preserving them. And here, I'll show you how I preserve them.
Alright folks, this is my way to preserve forage mushrooms. It's a little more work than dehydrating, but it preserves the flavor better. You can cook with them at a moment's notice without rehydrating, and you get 2 delicious mushroom stocks. These are golden oysters, but it works fantastically well with morels and other wild mushrooms too. So, first we're going to wash them. Paper towel on top will give any critters a life raft to climb onto that you can put back outside. Cut the caps off the stems, slice the caps, leave them whole, wash them again, the stems too, but separately this time. Throw the caps into a Dutch oven or covered pot with some olive oil and just a little salt and pepper into a 350-degree oven for 30 minutes, at which point the mushrooms will have released their moisture. Strain it off and freeze it. Meanwhile, you can throw your washed stems and less than perfect caps into a pot with some wine and simmer that for 30 minutes. Toss the stems, but save the stock. It won't be as rich as the straight cap stock, but it's definitely worth saving. Now you can freeze your caps on parchment until solid and store them in a bag in the freezer. When you want to use them, only pour as much as you need right from the bag into a hot skillet, season them, crisp them, and throw them whatever you want from there. Yum.
Yep, I know there was a lot packed in there. Yeah, actually, if you just go to my Instagram page, RedBarn Catering, I have it on there. I mean, there's a lot there, but it's actually pretty simple. I mean, you wash them, you slice them. Put it in a heavy pot, like a Dutch oven, with just a little bit of oil, a little bit of salt and pepper. Put the lid on, 350-degree oven for half an hour. That's it. Then you take it out, you strain off the stock, you save the stock, you put the mushrooms on a sheet pan, freeze them once they're solid, then you just put them in a bag, back in the freezer. And like, that's it.
What you're cooking right now, is that the blend we talked about earlier?
Exactly. Yeah. I don't keep them as a blend, but getting towards the end of what I had on hand, so to have enough for you guys, it's like, well, I guess I'm grabbing, I still have some in there, but yeah, grabbing a little from each bag just to give you a nice blend. Usually, I don't need to make this much for ramen at home, so this is actually the first time that I'm doing ramen where I am using it as a blend. But again, doing this for that method of preservation for morels works beautifully. I had a wedding for some friends of mine that were getting married later in the year out of morel season, so I preserved a whole bunch. I wound up with about 25 pounds that I had done to make a mushroom soup that had the croutons were just fried morels. And yeah, it was based actually off of a combination of a Bulgarian and an Albanian recipe that I blended together. It gets finished with creme fraiche blended with egg yolks and a good half bottle of Madeira, along with, and it was made with the morel mushroom stock that I was able to come up. It was one of those things like, this is just a pot of brown, like ugly delicious though. It was amazing. Alright, and while this is finishing up, we're going to do some broccoli too, because I've got the last of the broccoli from the garden. And that's something that when I'm doing, if I'm going to do a vegetable, usually what I do is either a boiled or a steamed vegetable, just because it is very easy, it is very fast, and again, roasting is going to give you something with that bitter taste to it, and steaming or boiling just works very well for things like broccoli or other things that you're going to add. So usually what I would do is put the broccoli in like a steamer basket, or just put it right into the water that I would be boiling the eggs in, and then just giving those a quick dunk, and then pulling the broccoli out, and then throwing in the eggs using the same water, because just doing it in that order, I don't want, if an egg shell does crack, I don't want my broccoli to be eggy, but I don't care if my egg shell is broccoli-y. So again, just making use of the water for multiple things, just so you have less pots, less water waste. And how I am going to finish these mushrooms is I've got these others that I already did earlier. I'm going to put right back in. I am not worried about overcooking them. getting them back up to temp. And all I'm going to do to season these is hit them with a little bit of this sweet soy sauce, this ketchup mayonnaise. And you'll see here it is thick. And I actually had to look this up because I was curious. Why is it called ketchup mayonnaise? It's spelled like K-E-A-P. It's like, well, how do I pronounce that? And it turns out it's ketchup. So then I was like, okay, well, where does ketchup originate from then? Ketchup is actually thousands of years old and was originally a fermented sauce made from fish guts and soybeans. And it was a very thin sauce. And the sauce and the concept of it kept changing as it moved across the continents until it got to like 1912 Philly, where some Philadelphia botanist wanted to make a, well, let's just say he thought that tomatoes were an aphrodisiac. He called them love apples. And that is the first record we have of a tomato-based ketchup. It didn't have vinegar or sugar. It had like brandy and other sexy ingredients. But I just love the idea of thinking of ketchup as being something like very sexy. But it's just, yeah, it's thousands of years old, and then some guy in Philly was just like, you know what I'm going to do with these love apples? So, yeah, that's thick soy sauce. It's one of the original forms of ketchup. I am going to give our broccoli a dunk. Since I don't actually need this water for anything else, I'm not going to worry about putting it in a strainer basket or anything like that. I'm just going to throw it in for, I don't know, 3-4 minutes sounds good. And meanwhile, I'm going to work on our shaved cabbage salad. This one, if you're on the Cooking in the Driftless group, I have a Facebook cooking group, Cooking in the Driftless. If you're on that, you've seen me make this cabbage slaw. It pretty much always winds up in my ramen because it is super easy, super fast, and it is so good. It's, at a minimum, it's cabbage, fresh ginger, and sushi vinegar. That's it. You don't need to marinate it. You don't even want it to sit for long because you want it to be incredibly thinly shaved and still crispy. How do you get it incredibly thinly shaved? It's helpful if your peeler is wider, but you can just get these thin shaves just like that. And it's not like you need that much. Like if I was doing this at home, that would already be enough. Now, like I said, we've got our minimum ingredient requirements. If you've got some carrots, do carrots. Got some daikon radish? Absolutely. Just got some of my CSA box from Steadfast Acres. It's just really just to show how much I love Steadfast Acres. I've got a whole pile of gardens behind the kitchen here. More gardens at home, and I still have a large weekly CSA box from Steadfast Acres. Because I don't grow the lettuces and the greens. They do. Oh look, daikon radish. How timely. I guess I'll throw that into the slaw. Sometimes you'll get some of these bigger pieces and you can just pick those out. Broccoli's probably about done. And like any of this other stuff, when I say it's done, just taste it. Luckily, my fingertips are dead, so I can just reach on in. Oh, my mouth is low. Woo. Yeah. No, that's enough there. Now, one of those steadfast daikon radishes. Compost. Now, here's another tool that's going to make this super easy. Looks like a peeler. This is called a julienne peeler. So you can just use this and get these perfect julienne peels right into it. So you don't need to do your classic French techniques and cut it into thin slabs and then cut those into matchsticks. Like, yeah, just that fast. Done. And that's all we need there. And can you tell that I pulled this out of the garden like a minute ago? I gave the outside a very good scrub so I can get some of that amazing color in there, because on the inside it is orange. But I just love that earthiness of that outside of a carrot. I mean, real carrots, I mean. It's one of those core memories of just going out to my mom's garden, pulling out a carrot, maybe rinsing it off with a hose, more likely just like wiping off the dirt with my hands and just eating it like that. And it's just that earthy, sweet, amazing flavor that I just think of every single time I pull one of these carrots out of the garden and just wipe it off my pants and eat it. So that is it. You really don't even need very much as far as the vegetables go. Well, that's probably getting pretty close. The ginger, just so I wouldn't have to run all the way to the freezer. Again, right before you guys got here, just a piece of ginger grabbed from the freezer. So all we do for this is we still have the peel on. Just gonna use the back of a knife, scrape off the peel, and actually right now, since it's starting to thaw on the outside, I'm actually pulling off a little more ginger than I would want to. When it's completely solid and you do this, you only remove just the outside peel. Since it's starting to thaw, I'm actually scraping away a little more of that ginger than I want to. But you just kind of roughly scrape it down to the point that you want. And I'm going to grab the zester. Right after I check over here again. We're so close. I'm going to have this whole salad done before that comes out. Now this one, since we are going to add that vinegar, which is going to tone down this ginger a bit, I want to throw in a lot. I mean, there's a lot of cabbage in here, but I don't call it a cabbage salad. This is a ginger salad. Ginger is one of those elements that I always love to have in my ramen. It's just one of those, like, boom, big just ginger flavor. And that looks good to me. See, that is not a small amount of ginger. And we're going to throw in the sweet sushi vinegar. As you can see by the size of the bottle and how much is left, I use it fairly often. And I mean, about that. It's not like you're going to be scooping it out with a spoon. You'd be using the tongs. So how much? I mean, enough to coat it. Whatever sticks to it, that's the right amount. And I mean, that right there is just beautiful. And a little bit of salt. Just a little bit. Big piece. And that is ready to go, like right now. I mean, I just put it in a bowl like that. Use a pair of tongs. Liquid stays in the bottom. And it is just beautiful. It gives you that ginger flavor and that wonderful sweet and sour. Done here. And that bowl works. I told for broccoli, this is one of those things that's super easy. Just a little bit of our sesame oil, don't need much, and sesame seeds. There we go. Well, let's just throw a little bit of sesame seeds on there. Salt, pepper. You know, I'm not going to do any like soy or anything like that. Just nicely cooked salt I just had. One of those things, if you've got, if you've got soy sauce in one spot, we've already got some of that sweet soy sauce on our mushrooms. We've got a miso-based stock, which has a different but very similar flavor. There's no reason to just overdo it on the soy. And just a little more of these guys on top. All right, now we've got that. Where are we at with here? We've got a bunch of stuff made, huh? I guess, yeah, with the vegetables, it is worth pointing out here that I do have them split up into, you can do raw vegetables, cooked vegetables, or vinegared/fermented vegetables. Obviously, the shaved cabbage salad we have here would fit into the vinegared. Fermented, I mean, doing something with kimchi goes really well on ramen. And actually, cucumbers, doing like, I did equal parts dashi, sushi vinegar, and soy sauce, and just put them on some thinly sliced cucumbers because a very short amount of time ago we had more cucumbers than we knew what to do with. And I mean, that's based on an actual Japanese cucumber thing, but just some of the ingredients, whatever I had on hand, was amazing. It was one of those like 5 minutes sitting in that vinegar. It was awesome. I had leftover. The next day, it had taken on even more flavor. Because again, you're supposed to like soak them in the let them sit with salt first to draw out the moisture. I didn't do any of that. I just threw it together because I was just throwing something together, and it was so good. So yeah, I mean, just play with it. Worst case scenario, it doesn't taste good. You don't eat it, but you learn something. So, yeah, I've got some notes on there as far as how you might want to prepare it. I've got bean sprouts on here. If they are very fresh bean sprouts, I mean, maybe I'll put a little bit of chili oil on there and just put them right on. Done. Don't even cook them. Bean sprouts don't stay incredibly fresh for very long. So once they get to that point, I just maybe pull off the ends that was a moment ago, just that perfect little green sprout coming out. Pull that off. It doesn't look nice anymore. Give them a quick rinse, and then into a hot skillet with a little bit of oil, salt and pepper, and then you can throw whatever you want at it from there. You could mix it with a little bit of kimchi, hit it with some chili crisp or something like that. But it's one of those things. I'm the only one in my house that likes it, but I love it. So a lot of times it's just for me. But I can only eat so much. So I only buy it when you look at it. It's like that is good and fresh. That I'm going to enjoy very soon. And everybody else can not enjoy this delicious crunchy water with me. How do you not like green sprouts? It is just like crunchy water with a little bit of flavor. It's so good. All right, now we are moving on to finishing touches. Now, I don't call it garnishes because garnish implies that it's just like merely for show. Yes, it is very pretty and can help elevate a dish with some very nice garnishes. But what we're going to be doing is we're going to be finishing the dish with some very flavorful and beautiful things. Most of what we're doing is not just gratuitous art. It is artful, but also done with a purpose. So I have it split up into fresh, oil, other, and what I couldn't think of any other name for other than zing. But, fresh things is mostly just, what you might have in your garden. When in the winter, I definitely sometimes miss the fresh element to finish it with, just because I don't have, I can't just go outside and grab something. And, I have really gotten out of the habit of buying herbs. If I'm not growing it, if it's out of season, I'm just not using it. But chives are especially something that I use a lot. They grow like crazy. What are you going to do with all these chives? I mean, they add that great oniony and beautiful fresh finish to your ramen. Parsley also works fine. Fresh, of course. Dried is only good for giving meatball mix some color. Citrus like lemon or lime is always excellent. Edible flowers, just, they do have some flavor, but that's a little more on the like garnish. It's just beautiful side, but there's nothing wrong with just making it pretty. Oil, toasted sesame oil, chili oil, garlic oil, are all things that you can just drizzle on. Like if you have one element, it's just like, well, I didn't really do anything with that. I just made it warm and put it on there. Like flavored oil, bam! Now it's a thing and it's good. Sorry, I said bam. For zing, I mean, that's like that garlic chili crisp, Sancho pepper hot sauce. It's one of those things that it gets in your mouth and you're just like, whoa! That's got something going on there. Obviously the garlic chili crisp, I really encourage all of you to go after it. Not, I'll just try a little bit because then it just makes you sad because you want more. Don't be afraid to like really get after it. I've got 2 jars here. I've got another one hidden away. Use a lot of that. The Sancho pepper, if you're not familiar with that, as soon as it hits your tongue, it is bright. It is citrusy. It's a little peppery. And then your tongue starts to tingle. Then you start to lose a little bit of feeling in your mouth. And it's like goes through this whole journey with the Sancho pepper. It actually does have a kind of numbing quality to it. So use a little bit, not a lot.
Where do you find that?
So all of this stuff, go to the Oriental shop on Park Street in Madison.
He just closed. He just sold his business and went out.
You're thinking of Yuwa.
Oh yeah. Isn't that the one?
No, it's literally called the Oriental shop.
Oh, okay, further towards the university.
Yeah. Yeah, you can see here, that's their little logo thing. It's called Oriental Shop. It is strictly Japanese. It is super small. Tamaki is one of the owners. She's amazing. Every single time I'm there, she always asks if I have any questions. I always do, and she is so incredibly helpful. You know, even with like these dashi ingredients, like you can look on Amazon and stuff, they have it, but it's insanely expensive. It is like $20 for like a 3 gram bag of these bonito flakes, and you go there, she has the same thing for like a quarter of the price. It's amazing, and I mean, for what a small shop it is, there's so much in there, and I always spend way longer than I mean to in there, and I always buy an insane amount of stuff, but it's not like it costs that much. It's really reasonably priced. So yeah, everything here. They also do bring in once or twice a week sushi grade fish. They have so many amazing products. Definitely check them out. And no, she didn't pay me to say that. They're just awesome folks. And other, yeah, I mean, sesame seeds, the nori, either sheets or shredded. Red pepper thread, that's actually something that we haven't talked about yet. It's actually Korean. It looks like this giant, it looks like giant saffron, but it is just beautiful. I see a lot of people using it lately. A lot of people even think that it is saffron, but it's, you know, it does have some flavor. It has, I feel like it has more aroma than flavor, but it is very nice and beautiful. And Narutomake is actually something that you'll see a lot of times. Narutomake is it's that little round thing that you'll see that has the red swirl in it. It's actually fish cake. So they like puree fish and they like smooth it out, and then they put like this layer of red in it that I feel like I should know what it is. It might just be dyed red fish. Don't quote me on that. But then they just roll it up and they let it set and get firm, and then you put it in slices, and that's yeah, that little white thing with the red swirl in it. Yeah, Narutomake is just another thing that you can throw on there. So at this point, we are going to assemble some ramen, and you guys are going to eat it, because that seems like something that we should do. And let's see, I'm going to heat up some noodles real quick. Broth. And while I'm heating up this broth while I'm heating up the noodles, which will go pretty quickly, I'm not going to dump it all in at once. You don't need to have one of these. I mean, I never use it at home, but they are handy. Are there any questions where we are now? Yes, sir. Directly on the other side of that wall. You can get there either that way or that way. I like that phrasing. If I were a bathroom, where would I be? State of constant confusion. Accommodates. Thank you for bearing with me as we are at the 4 o'clock mark. I always talk more than I think I'm going to, which says a lot because I know how much I talk. So what you're gonna do is you'll be starting over there, and let's see, do I want to? Let's see if I want to put any more sesame oil on the noodles. Just a little bit. Got that off. Let's go. The there. Let's want to slice up some of these. Nearly there. So hopefully you'll be able to take all this information and use it as just an easy guideline for how to just throw together some ramen based on whatever you got lying around. I mean, yeah. So getting those crispy bits all over it. All right. Well, I used up my wet bolts in that. All right. I got these two. Well, we got some everything. We can start over here. Come on through. Grab a bowl, put some noodles in it, and you can dress it as you like. And then we'll add some broth. All right, need some tongs here. This will be the ends.
Sorry, probably don't want my hands.
All right, want some of that. This and secure.
I've never made this, so I just put little dollops of everything in here.
Yeah, I mean, whatever you would like to have on there is what you go for. So we need a couple more tongs. Oh, wonderful! What's your name? I will do that. I understand, so I will. Well, I've got to tow that trailer around all the time, and it's usually pretty loaded with food. These driftless hills were not being very kind to my 97 F-150. I had to upgrade. All right, I'm going to grab a couple of tongs real quick.
I was moving tongues around. I think it's okay as long as
Yeah.
Where I'm free on the here. All right. Beef, egg. All right. guess just for expediency, why don't you pick one broth as this so everybody can get eaten, and then come back as it's open and try everything. So what sounds good at this moment? Pork. Going to pork.
That I think is beef.
And chicken.
There you go.
I'll do pork as well since you're right there.
Yeah, beef or chicken.
Okay.
That makes me realize I should have 4 ladles, right?
These mushrooms are great.
We got a ladle of the right size, but one. All right. You wanted beef, which is that's mushrooms. There you go. You
I'll have the same.
beef.
Yep. So, the spoons, where are the spoons?
They are right there. There are chopsticks and spoons right there. Mushroom, yes. It's so good. There you go. Yep. Chili crisp, chili crisp. Shame on me. Yeah, I said put it right on your egg.
Might have to stir it some.
Yeah, I have considered it for sure. All right, what flavor would you like? Right here.
And then this is
Beef and pork. I mean, whichever you like.
I'd like to try the mushroom.
Sure.
This is awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Cheese, what cheese?
Please do.
touch it with your finger and tell me if it's spicy. Just give that a perfect.
What kind of broth would you like? Depends on what you got in there. Some everything? No, how about
I was like,
Did you get that too?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. I've been waiting for that.
I'm excited. I'm really scared of spice though, so I'm gonna make my kid try it first. Just in case, he knows my level.
Yep.
Mushroom, please.
You do? Just a pig. That? Of course I do. All right, what can I get for you? Sure. Yes, you absolutely should. Even if you're so full, you can only get a spoonful, and you still gotta taste it. Yes. There you go. And did you know that sushi ginger is pink for the same reason that red cabbage is purple? Is they both contain anthocyanins. Now, while you can't see the color in ginger readily, but if it is very fresh and very young, the vinegar from the pickling process activates the anthocyanins and makes it turn pink. Most places do add a little bit of red dye number 40 to try to get that color. Sometimes they go too much and it winds up being fluorescent. But if you do have basically, if it, by and large, if it's from Japan, even if it does have some of that number 40 in there, it's still good. But if you grow your own ginger, you can pickle your own, and you will see how it will turn pink. And it's pretty neat.
Cool setup. I like
Thanks.
it.
I'm eating for my dad, so
Oh, sure, absolutely.
sorry.
Sure, we could find something to get something to take him something home.
I asked him, he said no.
Well, he said no,
I
but
know,
you can still
I know,
bring it.
I know.
All right, what'd you like?
Why don't I go with orchid?
Beef. There you go. Thanks.
I'm slicing with an
These
egg.
guys probably want. Oh yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Absolutely.
That's the chili
Oh, okay. Yep.
slivers or
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, there we go. Good
the
stuff.
pork, please.
Sure.
Good.
Oh, there's spoons and chopsticks right there.
I'm wearing your food.
I usually do. The kids always do.
forgot to try one of the eggs.
Yeah, I mean they're great. Like duck eggs too. Yeah, duck eggs are on the. There you go. Duck eggs. Pork.
Pork this time, please.
Yes, sir.
So
Oh yeah. Yeah, I went from being like sad and even upset until I realized that he's been working every day for what is it, like 40 years, even going in on Christmas, and he's just been like going nonstop. It's like, you know what? Thank you for everything you brought, given the Madison surrounding community.
That's how I felt.
Yeah,
I mean, he just was always there.
always,
Always there.
he was.
He couldn't find a buyer. He's like, who's the pork this fermented crazy?
Yeah.
I don't know which one. I tried pork last time.
I'd say it is a mushroom. Beef. It's a good way to look at it. Thank you. Eggs. All right. What kind of broth are you thinking?
I think I'm going to grab some chai bread.
Oh,
Okay, pork.
All right.
But it might primarily be difficult if I'm not. You just don't. Except, like, unfortunately, except for when it's
Hot pan.
I get mushroom.
Can't take it out. Hurry up.
And then I was gonna try, I was gonna try the pork this time.
Yeah, it's pork critter. Yep, and that's beef.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm able to do this. But
Yes, I definitely went a little more extreme. This is more than I usually do, but if you just do like one of each of the things, then it all comes together very quickly.
yeah, I did learn about the mushroom thing though, because I always get scared about overcooked mushrooms.
Hmm.
So that's more to learn.
Yeah, no, it was one of those things that I was real happy to learn myself. Beef, yes, yes,
Also, one more question.
yeah.
Do you have like seaweed that you can put in the ramen?
Some nori. Grab this, and you know what? I'll just let you have that, and you're good to go. Just rip and shred as needed.
Which one was pork?
That one, yep. All right, Court, please. Go. Yes, sir. I mean, I usually do beef with beef, pork with pork, but you know, chicken I'll do pork with chicken. You know, at home since my wife is actually vegetarian, so usually that's why when I make it at home, I'm more often than not using that like no chicken stock, and then doing stuff with that. I'll add in some of those. She doesn't eat fish, so sometimes I'll add some of that instant dashi.
I know, I think it's the second one. My
Yeah,
son
she doesn't
likes
eat
it.
fish, so exactly, yes, she's pescatarian. So I will add the either kombu bonito and just sort of dunk that in real quick, or the instant granules, but just to kind of give it that extra layer of flavor. But miso, I'm always adding miso to it just because I love it.
Jay, this was terrific. Where should I put my dishes?
You can either set them by the sink over there, but also there's a bus tub right under where the coffee and sake is. All right, let me get that. Yeah. There you go.
So for the marinated tofu and the cabbage salad,
Yeah.
if I made that on a Sunday, how long would that last in my fridge?
So the cabbage salad, one of the reasons I always make it in smaller amounts is it's really best within the first like half hour because it's so thinly shaved. It's got that crunch to it. That's one of the things that makes it, not only very convenient to make, but for me, very pleasant to eat. The texture and everything goes really well.
So make that day.
But yeah, that's always one of those things that I just kind of do like last minute. Well, if I'm waiting for something else to happen, then I can just throw that together. You saw how quick I was able to make enough
Right.
for everybody to have a run through.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But the tofu, I mean that you can let it marinate. They say I see enough people say like minimum 20 minutes, and I'm like. I mean, bare minimum, like an hour, I'd say.
Okay.
Which is why the tofu takes a little while because you need to press it, then you need to let it marinate properly. But I would say if you can let it marinate for anywhere from like 4 hours to 2 days, would be a good max. But then after that, if you're like, well, I thought I was gonna have ramen this night, but then kids soccer went late and all this other stuff, just take it out of the marinade, save the marinade, but take it out of the marinade, and then you can just you still have another 2 days after that. That's why a lot of the stuff like the eggs and everything, you don't have to have it right away. It's something like, I think I'll make ramen at some point this week. I don't really know when, but you could do some of this marinade stuff. But usually, it, usually I don't do the marinade stuff because I make ramen so often just as a like, oh crap kind of thing. But that usually I don't even do the marinades. It's just throw it together with whatever you got. Cool. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, that was the pork. Yeah. True. Alright, well here. Alright, well here you got, I think chicken goes with the pork pretty well. Oh yeah. Is that
So you hungry yet?
a little? We're just about out of mushroom, but we still have pork, chicken, and beef.
Does your stock, do your stock by definition have salt in them? I mean, there's a lot of salt around it. How do you use it? Do you salt your stock as well?
I do usually my stocks. I rarely have to make stock for the purpose of making stock. It's usually just like, well, I've made a roast. Yeah, exactly. So that being said, I do salt the things that there is salt in there, but I always go very low on salt. My mom always taught me to season as you go, as to say season in many layers. Every layer that you should do should have some seasoning in it, but never overdo it on one. Especially with salt, you can always adjust at the end. That being said, you still want to add salt at the beginning because you don't want to just like not add salt and then go it all in. So yeah.
Just say so much.
Oh sure. Well, I should give you something before you go. Just a little snacky snack.
Okay.
Oh, I know what it is.
I'm glad. Yeah. I know I went over a little bit, but
It was very enjoyable.
well, good.
Very good.
The Halverson Ramen game is going up a couple notches.
I hope so.
Yes, thank you.
Sure thing. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Usually I don't do all of this, but like especially the elements, as long as you've got, just those core things.
Clean up the fridge.
Exactly. Yeah. That's. I mean, I didn't want to give you a recipe. Be like, well, now I can make this one ramen dish. Yeah, what do you got lying around?
Yeah. Hey, would you be interested in a huge coffee brewer for free?
Sure.
Okay. Are we gonna make more coffee faster?
Yeah. I'd be fine with that.
You could have get your own silos. They can give you one silo with it, but you get big 2-gallon silos.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, and it would cut it to two units, two at the same time.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, I do the percolator, but 100 cup takes an hour.
Yeah, yeah. So I'll get you one. We got a couple. We're trying to create space.
Well, sure.
If we want to connect with you and bring it over here, it needs 220.
Yeah.
I got a solid one hanging there.
Yeah. No, I've got a few.
Put it on a cart somewhere.
Yeah.
All right.
Definitely.
Well, take care, bud. Thank you.
Absolutely.
This is awesome. This is fun.
Oh, glad you enjoyed it. Thanks. Well, right. I mean, I always want, every class I've ever taught has been, well, now that you've done this, now you can do these other things too. But this one was really just like, well, the whole point of me making ramen every time I do is just, we got lying around, we make it work. Well, I suppose we can stop screaming. Bye, Nate.